Welcome back. We are getting behind the wheel, telling you what the future of cars may look like. The 5th annual Looking Further with Ford. It's the trend report telling us what consumers can expect years down the line. Joining us right now is Ford Motors Manager of Global Consumer Trends and Futuring. Sheryl Connelly is with us. Sheryl, people look forward to this trend report because it tells us a lot about what we may be doing in the next not just year, but 5 years. What are the highlights from this report?
Well, I think a lot of people that look at the report are surprised to see that it's not really car-focused. What we're looking at is big picture, global trends. And for the coming years, a couple of things that come to mind are trust.
Consumer trust was once again one of the major trends that you outlined.
In fact, it's the first trust is the first trend that we talked about in the first year of our publication, and so we revisited it 5 years later and found that it's even more relevant today than it was in 2013.
So 85% of the people are afraid personal data is collected without their consent.
Yes, so that's, I think, an increasing concern. And consumers are happy to give up their information as long as they can see the benefit. So you have to be very transparent about it. And so companies like Ford have to recognize that they have a responsibility. They have to be faithful stewards of what's entrusted with them.
Because there's so much data in the car, by the way, we should point out, that you've got all sorts of stuff about people.
So our strategy with that regard is that our customers have to opt in. So we have things like Sync, which is our platform that pairs your Bluetooth-enabled device with the entertainment system. But as soon as the device is taken out of the vehicle, it's all gone. So even people who rent vehicles say, well, I'm worried about pairing my phone, but it doesn't, there's no connection, there's no data loop that stays with the vehicle once the phone leaves the automobile.
Is that typically with all of the Bluetooth-enabled devices, or just Ford?
You know, I couldn't speak to the competition.
Okay. But when you take your device out, you would expect that your information is not still in the car.
Right.
All right. The Ford survey also talks about the changing role of women. This is interesting.
It is really exciting. We call it the female frontier. And we surveyed customers 3 years ago, and we asked them in that time period, do they think advances of women have improved? And in 9 different countries, universally, people said yes. But yet still, 88% of women and 77% of men think that men and women are not viewed equally.
But 78% said that women are getting more opportunities, right?
There are increasing opportunities, and that comes with improved access to education, greater career opportunities, more financial independence. In fact, I think that's why you see more single women today around the world than married.
But you would imagine that the woman is the CEO of their household, right? I mean, that's who's making the buying decisions. That's who's making the decisions of what comes into her house for her children.
So they say 85% of all household decision making is done by women, and so that's really important for all categories. But in the car world, we pay particular attention to recognizing women have always played a strong role in deciding how to keep their family safe.
Sure, sure. And this is one of my favorites. Ford survey also found that consumers are finding more enjoyment in having less.
Yes.
71% of those surveyed said that they define wealth differently from their parents. It's not about money.
It's not. And we call it the Good Life 2.0. And I think that people are reassessing what are their priorities. We look at that as that not everyone looks at the car as a status symbol. And for some of them, it's just mere transportation. So Ford is exploring this new smart mobility services. So it's not just about serving people who want to own their own vehicle, but some people just need transportation. So that's car sharing, ride sharing.
Well, tell me more about how this impacts Ford and what you may do to actually change as a result of what you learned in this survey.
So what we've been doing in recent years under the guidance of our CEO, Mark Fields, he said, you know, the company has always been a manufacturer and will always, that'll be our core competency. But as we move forward, what we want to focus on is this emerging opportunity of mobility services. Some people, a city like New York, no less, is really difficult to get around. And so sometimes driving your own car isn't the preferred option. So we have a platform called Ford Pass, which helps people plan their journey every day. So let's say you're running late, you can reserve your parking spot before you head out, or you decide you don't want to take your car, we can direct you to mass transit opportunities, how to hail a ride, or even bike sharing.
There's a lot of technology in the car that enables you to do that. What about autonomous cars and driverless cars? Do you glean anything from this survey about that?
Yes. So I think that people are basically telling us that they have better things to do with their time. So we did this idea about time well spent. And time and mobility have always been inextricably tied together. But if you look at a city like Beijing, they say that their average daily commute is 5 hours a day. And so people want to get that time back. And I think that's a big part of the appeal for autonomous vehicles.
Right. So that they could work in the car.
Work in the car, sleep in the car, be entertained in the car. I think that we as a company have announced by 2020 we'll have autonomous vehicles on the road, but probably in a commercial application, so for ride-hailing services.
So, you just wonder if there's going to be that kind of acceptance to these autonomous. We've been talking about it for so long, and you wonder. I understand wanting to do more in the car, but does that mean autonomous?
Well, the appetite for it is certainly different around the world. We did a survey last year, and we found the countries that were most interested were India and China. So 84% of the people we spoke to said in the next 10 years they could imagine it. 78% in China, but when you got down to the U.S., the number dropped to 40%, and in the U.K. it was even lower at 30%.
Wow.
And we think that's driven by two things. One is that in China and India, that's going to be a safer option. I mean, the infrastructure, the congestion, road fatalities and accidents are quite high, so people see it as a safer option. But I think the other explanation is that the U.S., the UK consumer, Western consumers feel a great emotional affinity to their vehicles. They don't want to give it up.
Yeah, good point. Sheryl, great stuff. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Sheryl Connelly from Ford joining us here. Next.